Hello and welcome to episode 54 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet in my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is June 8th, 2020. As usual, I'll start with what I'm wearing, and today I'm wearing two rather old pieces. And actually the shawl that I'm wearing is so old that I never put it into Ravelry. I am thinking of remedying that situation and putting it in there after all, but the pattern is from knitty.com and it was published in the summer of 2008, and I think that I knit the shawl 2009 and 10 or 10, I don't know, quite some time ago. This is opal sock yarn with cotton, so it's a mix of wool, cotton and nylon, and this was the first time I knit a cable pattern that looked the same on both sides. So it's a reversible cable pattern with drop stitches. So it's a mix of lace and cables. And I thought that was so fascinating, and I was absolutely amazed when I saw the pattern, and I wanted to do that and to have that. I then realized it's quite a lot of work, because for every strand of every cable you have to knit one through the back loop, purl one, knit one, and then purl one through the back loop, and you have to do that like every other 4 stitches on both sides of your pattern. So it was a lot of work. The drop stitches, some of the drop stitches you drop as you go, like in between here. Every time you get to here you would drop the stitch, so things would open up a bit. But these drop stitches next to this cable, you drop these at the very end, so the shawl looks quite a bit smaller while you're working on it. And I remember that after a while, I probably had knit like 2/3 of it, I dropped them just to see what size the shawl would be in the end, so that the width and the length would fit together. I did that, I dropped the stitch, and then I just did a yarn over so I'd have a new stitch for the rest of my knitting, and then I could drop that and it would look the same all over. And so this is one of my absolute favorite shawls of all time. It also has this cable running along the edge, which I think is very beautiful. And then instead of casting the stitches off, you knit another cable alongside the top, and while you knit the cable, you sort of eat up all the stitches up there. And you start with a provisional cast on, and then you do the same at the other end. And then this is just a huge big piece full of cables. I really love it. The pattern is called Jeanie from knitty.com, summer 2008. And the jacket that I'm wearing, I not only knit myself, but I designed it myself. I designed it for Wollerödel, the yarn shop that I used to work for, and it appeared in the magazine Die Neue Masche number 4 in the summer of 2014. So I knitted in October 13 so that they could use the pattern for the magazine. And I was told to use this white cotton yarn. It's a pure cotton, and the edges were beige. So when I was given the yarn and told what to knit, they said to do an all-over cable pattern, and I had to knit beige edges. And I knew that once the pattern was published and once it had been a model in the shop for a certain time, I would get to keep the jacket, and I knew I didn't want the beige edges. I decided I was going to undo them afterwards and knit them in a new color. So of course it had to be this nice blue. And with the neckline it was no problem, because this was knitted at the end, so I could just rip it out and knit a new one. But I knew with the sleeves you were supposed to start with this garter band, and then you knit the sleeve. So what I did is I started the sleeve with a provisional cast on, but I didn't put that in the pattern. And then I picked up the stitches and knit the beige cuff, and then afterwards I could undo it and knit in a different color. And for a while I was thinking of maybe doing a different color like every other year or something. But so far I've never changed that color. But it's a nice little jacket. It has a bit of waist shaping. It's still rather loose. It has all these cables running up and down the whole piece. It's knit in pieces and sewn together because that's what I was taught to do. Yeah, and then I was really disappointed when the magazine appeared, and there was a tiny little picture of the woman wearing the jacket next to a man wearing something else, and all the other pictures were a lot bigger, so nobody ever noticed the jacket. And I don't think anybody knit it except for where I used to work, because we had the jacket itself in the shop, and people would come and ask, oh, that's nice, where do I find the pattern? And I would say, oh, it's in the magazine. And then they would say, no, I have the magazine and I didn't see the jacket. And I would say, yeah, look at this tiny little picture there. Well, anyway, I like it, and yeah. And so today I'm all dressed in cables. Okay, on to finished objects. Today I have 3 finished objects that I want to show you that I finished during the last week, 2 of which you've seen before. One is a last minute little thing that I knitted yesterday, and I decided to show you some of the things that my sister knit just for a change. Don't usually do that, but if you remember, I was knitting baby things where I said my sister is knitting a baby blanket and I'm knitting some other things, and we want to send things off today. So that's why I had to knit the baby socks yesterday so we could send it off today. And I thought, why not show you the blankets that she knit, just to change things up. So this is what I knit not last night, but yesterday. I started in the afternoon, and then I knit one in the afternoon and one in the evening. And this is just for a newborn. It's 6-ply sock yarn, some leftover yarn that I had at home. I think it's opal. So this is for the tiny baby that was born, I think, a month ago maybe, and the blanket is for him. And these are the socks that you've seen before that I knit for his big brother. I showed them a few weeks ago. So these are the 2 pairs of socks, spiral socks, that I knit for the 2 kids. And this is the baby blanket that my sister knit, and she just knit a big square, starting with just 3 stitches and then increasing at the beginning of every row until the blanket was wide enough, and then she decreased at the beginning of every row so that she ended up with 1 stitch. And she used 2 colors of opal sock yarn. One color was Hundertwasser from the Hundertwasser line, and the other was, I think, rainforest color. So one was just blues and one was a mix of blue and yellow, and she held both yarns double. And then she would knit 2 rows with one color and 2 rows with the other color. And then, and then you get this really colorful blanket with the stripes going diagonally. And I really like it. And for the socks for the big brother, I used the same Hundertwasser color, so the same blue yellow, but then I held it double with a different blue, but I don't think you would notice. And I thought with the yarn held double, it would be too thick for the baby. So that's why I used a 6-ply for the baby socks. And I picked a blue that had a bit of orange in it, so it would kind of go with the blanket. And once the baby grows and the big brother gets too big for these socks, and then the baby can wear the socks that perfectly match his blanket. So that's what we knit for one of the babies. This is going to Japan. This is going to a family who live in Japan. And the other baby lives closer to home. And I knit the baby surprise jacket. And I finished it. So I think most people will know the pattern, Baby Surprise Jacket by Elizabeth Zimmerman. You knit it in one piece, and then you just sew 2 seams on top of the arms here and here, and then you put some buttons, and that's it. I knit it exactly as the pattern says, except for the neckline. For the neckline, you're supposed to cast off 5 stitches at some point, I think somewhere around here, and then you'd have like a little square for the neck to sit in. But I always feel that it looks really small, and I know babies don't have a big neck, but I don't know. For me, it just looks a little too small. So what I like to do, if I don't forget, is I do this like a tiny little bit of a V-neck. I will just decrease 1 stitch every other row 5 times. So I have decreased the same number of stitches, but it's a more gradual neckline, and I prefer that. And then just some colorful buttons that I happen to have lying around. And yeah, and this was an Opal Abo yarn that was one of a kind that I had, and I added the purple in. And this is the blanket that my sister knit, and that's a 10-stitch blanket. Forgot the designer's name, but I think this is also a very well-known pattern that people have knit a lot. And you start with 10 stitches and you knit, and then you knit a corner and you knit another corner, and then once you start knitting this strip, you always attach the strip you're knitting to the bit that you already have. Then you knit another corner and then you attach, and then you have to knit and attach the whole time. And this is another 6-ply sock yarn by Opal with these bright colors for a little girl. And yeah, and I felt that the Abo yarn that I had, the subscription yarn, kind of fit with the blanket, and that's why I added the purple instead of the darker blue that I was thinking of before. Yeah, so I hope this little girl will be happy with her presents, and we'll send this off today too. And now my third finished object. That's my lace fade pullover. This is the Romy pattern from her book. What's the book called? Knitting Open Spaces, something like that. I'll link it down below so you can have a look. And yeah, so this is now washed. I didn't really block it. I just washed it and then laid it out to dry. But the lace pattern has really opened up nicely, even just by putting it down, but after the washing. And yeah, I finished the ribbing on the bottom of the pullover. I really like the fact that the black really spread out in very small stripes and spirals, but I think that looks really nice at the bottom. And then I did some really tiny sleeves, but I kind of did what I planned to do is I meant to knit the same amount of rows that I did on the front and back before I added in the black, and I think it's even 1 or 2 rounds longer, but yeah, ended up to be fairly short sleeves, but I like it and love the color, and yeah, hopefully if the weather stays nice, this will be what I'm wearing today soon. So that's all my finished objects for today. Then on to works in progress. And as usual, I'll start with my socks. I have finished the first of my spiral socks. And as I said, I added on a 1-color toe, and I picked green for this color, and I chose an orange yarn for the other sock. So they'll have different toes, but the rest will be the same. And this is another spiral socks, just like I did for the children, for the baby and his brother. So this is knitted without a heel, but because of the spiraling pattern, if you put either a sock blocker or a foot in there, it will sort of adjust to whatever you put in, and it'll fit any foot. So it doesn't matter if the foot's a bit longer or shorter. Anyone can wear this sock as long as it's not too narrow. That's why I like spiral socks. And I've continued on the second one a tiny little bit. I think I was in the orange somewhere last week, and I've just added a few rows. Yeah, And this is just one of those easy in-between projects that I can pick up, that I can knit on while I'm walking or waiting somewhere. Yeah, and the same goes for the other sock that I'm knitting. That's my grey summer shorty socks. And I had done half the heel last week, so I finished the heel, and then after the heel I went straight into those short rows to bring the opening a bit more to the front. And I've just finished those short rows, so I added 2 stitches every short row, and then I just got to the middle and I've added just a few rounds going straight, and I just need to go straight. I'm knitting both those socks on my chiaogoo mini circular needles. This is a 2.75 millimeter needle, and this is a 2.25 millimeter needle, because this is a cotton yarn. If the sock yarn has cotton in it, I prefer to knit with a smaller needle because of the cotton. It makes it a bit softer, but it also makes it a bit looser for me when I knit it. Don't know if it's the same for everyone, but that's the way I like to do it. And the third pair of socks that I'm knitting is the mystery knit along from the Kunkel Stube, a German knit group, and the Nerd Knits. Annette designed this pattern, and every Saturday we get a new piece of the pattern. And last week I hadn't finished, I think, I don't know, but last week I was knitting the leg, and it was this pattern, and it was supposed to be 3 repeats. I only did 2, and I'm quite glad I did, because now that we have the pattern for the heel, I realized the heel adds to the length, so I'm quite happy I didn't do the 3rd repeat. Now this looks a bit weird at the moment because I haven't finished the heel. This is the front of the sock, so that's quite funny that those little lines that go to and fro here, they suddenly start moving towards each other and they cross over, and the pattern is written so that you can do the crossing differently. So with this one crosses over, and on this sock this one crosses over, so they're a mirror image. And on the back of the sock the pattern stays the same, but you increase stitches. I'm not quite sure what this sock is called in English, but it's the same heel that I knit with my rock solid socks that I knit with the for the Down Syndrome International campaign. So this is not the first time I'm knitting this heel. I think it's the 3rd time. I knit another pair of socks years ago with this kind of heel. Or I think I even did 2 before, so rock solid, probably my 3rd. So this could be the 4th time I'm knitting it, but doesn't matter. What you do is you increase stitches every other round, and then I think I only need to do 1 more round, and then you knit the heel turn, I think is the English word. And then once the heel turn's done, then I can go straight down with the foot, which I can't do because it's not part of the pattern yet. So the heel turn is part of the pattern, and maybe 1 or 2 more rounds, I don't know. And then I'll have to wait for Saturday, and then we'll get the next bit of instructions. I think that's the last bit then, and then we can finish off the socks. Yeah, so that's another Opal Abo Knolls, Opal subscription, one of a kind. I really like the color and the patterning of this color. I'm knitting from the same ball of yarn, one with both yarn, and so that's why they're different pattern. The colors go in the opposite direction. Yeah, but you know I like different socks. So that's that. Then what's next? I continued knitting on the haramaki. I am knitting for my aunt. I'm again in the middle of the row. Why do I always stop in the middle of the row? So I've added onto this 1 color strip that's supposed to run around the haramaki when it's done. Still have this bit left, so I'll finish this ball of yarn, then I'll do the second half of this color, and then I will have to find a second contrast color. So this is, again, some mindless knitting, which is probably the reason it doesn't grow that quickly, because I can only do so much mindless knitting at a time. Okay, the next project I did work on, you didn't see last week, that's my Känguruh shorts by Stephen West. And the last time I showed you, I had finished one band of connecting the front and the back of the trousers, and I have started the second strip. So now this upper bit is finished and I could try it on. It fit. I'm very happy about that. Now I need to finish knitting down here, connecting the front and the back. Then I'll have to do the same in between the pieces to connect those two pieces, and then only the I-cord bind off. So we're slowly getting there. The weather is getting warmer and I'm finishing up my really, really warm and heavy shorts. Quite crazy. Anyway, I did not knit on the gnome, which is a shame. I did not knit on the wrist warmers, and I did add one square to my blanket, but I thought I'll show you next week when I've added a few more, so it's more interesting. And that brings me to my pullovers and jackets, and I have two of my whips on the same hanger at the moment. So this is the Hitofude jacket that I am knitting out of a big ball of Wollmeise. I weighed the ball and I've used up about half the yarn. And I've already finished both sleeves, and I have now knit the third increase for the fronts. So one more increase to come. And I've added 1.5 pattern repeats after the third increase, and yeah, it's just slowly and steadily growing. So the back goes down straight without the increases. It's fairly long already on the back, but the fronts are a lot shorter because of the construction of the jacket. But I'm quite happy. I added stitches to the front and I made the neckline a bit smaller, so it really looks very nice the way it sits now, different from the first time I knit this pattern. And yeah, so I'm going to continue knitting on this. I've added a pattern repeat in between the increases, and I will keep doing that. So I will knit another 1.5 pattern repeats before I do the last increase that's in the pattern. And then I will knit another 3 pattern repeats and then try it on. And at that point, I'll decide whether or not I'll make more increases. And then I will just have to knit and try on and knit and try on, and at some point decide to finish it. So right now I can't tell whether I will decide it's long enough at some point or whether I will try and finish off the yarn. But it just might be too much. We'll see. We'll see. I'll keep knitting and I'll keep you posted. So that's the jacket and that's my snowflake pullover. And I have finished the pattern for the yoke. So as I said last week, I repeated this pattern down here, and I did not use the third pattern that I had planned to do because it would have been too big and too high. And once I finished the pattern, I added in short rows. So you can see here, there's just one row on top of or underneath the pattern. And then you can see that slowly there's more rows. And this is the length that I have at the back now. So that means when I line up the stitches down here, it's not really easy to see, but if I line them up down here, then the neckline comes higher at the back than at the front, which is what I wanted, because I don't like it if the pullovers are too close or too high on my neck in the front. Yeah, so that looks nice. I've tried it on, I've measured it. I need to knit about 2 centimeters of straight knitting for the yoke to be deep enough. And then I will separate sleeves and fronts and back. And then I can keep knitting. And I'm planning on repeating this middle pattern down before I knit the cuffs and the ribbing at the front and back, so that both patterns are in the pullover twice. Yeah, that's a project I really enjoy a lot. I loved knitting the pattern, so I'll see how much I enjoy just knitting the plain knitting. But I'll try and get there, because I'm excited to have that pullover. Yeah, so that brings me to the last work in progress for this week, and that's my Haruni shawl. I have filmed knitting chart B in German. I still haven't done chart C, but maybe I'll get to that this week. And I have put some more repeats on my proper shawl, and I forgot how far I got. Yeah, I have done 11 repeats. So 10 repeats is what they say in the pattern, and I wanted to do more because of the thin yarn. Otherwise, I was worried it might be a bit too small, and I love shawls to be really big. So I have 11 repeats now, but as I said last week, I need either 12 or 14 because you need to have an even number of repeats so that the number of stitches fits with chart B. So I will have to do at least one pattern repeat, so it's 12 repeats, and then if I can manage to do, I might even do 2 more so that it's a really nice and big shawl. Yeah, I really enjoy knitting on that. That's the Opal sock yarn 3-ply, which is thinner than the normal sock yarn, but it has these beautiful bright colors, and it's a very light shawl because of that. Yeah, so that's all the knitting and crocheting. Oh, I didn't do any crochet. The next magazine of the Simply Crochet magazine is out. I could have continued crocheting, but I just didn't get around to doing that. I hope to do that this week, so next week there won't be just knitting, but also a little bit of crochet. I hope you enjoyed watching my projects grow and seeing my finished objects, and also the ones that my sister did. It's a bit different today then, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!